You are refreshed. We liked you better when you were depressed. You know we do not mean that. Right here, yes. Your friends like you better when you're depressed than angry, though, don't they?
Hello, how are you?
Extremely well.
Excellent. How's Esther?
Same.
Yeah. Good. It's a lot of...
Jerry's good too.
Jerry's good.
Karen,
Good to know.
Karen, Karen's
Excellent.
good. Mike, how are you?
Good, very good, thank you.
We're not making fun. Well,
Absolutely.
we are a little. But when you ask a question to which you know the answer is going to feel good, it's a downstream question. When you ask a question to which you know the answer is not going to feel good, that's an upstream question. So we think that's really worth thinking about. You're always safe with us because we're always good.
Well, let's talk about good. I'd like to talk about the experience of unbridled joy around receiving a lot of money. And that's an experience I look forward to.
But you know what's really tricky about that? By the time you're ready to receive large amounts of money, it feels so much like the next logical step that it does not feel like unbridled joy. It's tricky, isn't it? Esther
Yes.
was really irritated when she discovered that. Because when you don't have something that you really, really want, you think the really, really getting of it will feel really, really good. But the problem is the really, really getting of it when you don't feel it can't happen. And so you bring yourself into vibrational alignment with it so gradually that when it comes, it just feels logical. Esther can remember a feeling of unbridled joy that you're describing in anticipation of books being translated in many, many different languages. And yet she received one today that she didn't even know they were working on. And her feeling was, oh, how very nice that is. And so that's what you're currently feeling like it will be outrageous abundance will feel like. You'll say, oh, how very nice and normal that is. Because until it feels that way, it can't come.
And so I'm aware of how it doesn't feel that way yet. And
Well, however, let us give you something here, because when we were talking about what the call of source feels like, and when you are in joy and you turn your thoughts to a downstream thought, so you come even more into alignment with source, there is this feeling of elation. And a feeling of elation is a feeling of elation. There's just no getting around it. When you are feeling despair and you turn your attention towards something, it doesn't feel like elation. It feels like something that's slightly better than despair, but it doesn't feel like elation. And so the more subjects upon which you are choosing better feeling thoughts, so that you're coaxing yourself into the normal feeling of feeling better and better, then you will feel that exhilaration as the abundance flows into your experience. And under those conditions, it will flow.
I noticed that the feeling of excitement and the feeling of anxiety or fear are very similar. It feels that way.
Because, now, it's so clever what you're saying here, and you're going to give us an opportunity to explain something so essential. So I'm standing here in the absence of a lot of money that I want. And so I really want a lot of money. Life experience has caused me to ask for this and this and this, and there's a veritable fortune amassed for me in vibrational escrow. But the fortune that's amassed for me, I don't have easy, ready access to it yet, because I'm vibrating over here, beating the drum of not enough money, and it's all over there waiting for me to change my vibration to one of expectation for it. So there's a big gap between where I am and all of this abundance that I'm waiting for. So when you say that feeling of excitement feels sort of like, what was the word you used?
Anxiety.
That's because it's not pure excitement. It's I want it, but I want it, but I want it, but. In other words, you're muting the excitement with the vibration that's common to how you feel about money. You
Yes.
see what we're getting at?
Yes.
And so it's just a matter of turning and talking. Let's do it here. So talk to us about dollars. Don't try to make it the way you think it should sound. Just talk about dollars. And we're going to demonstrate how, if it's upstream or downstream. In other words, we'll help you find thoughts. And remember, you don't have to find a thought and turn and make it go fast. You just have to stop this thought and the stream will turn you.
Well, I'll start where I start. If I'm really...
There are people who associate the feeling of want with absence of having. Chew on that just for a little bit. There are people who think that wanting is only associated with things not yet achieved. And are you getting it? In other words, desire, pure desire in expectation feels one way. Desire in doubt feels another way. And you think that just because you're focused upon a subject of something you want to have, that it's always desire that is pure. And we're wanting to point out that when you want it and you believe it, it feels one way. When you want it and you doubt it, it feels another way. And so it doesn't matter what the words are that you're using, you want to tame the beast and get yourself moving in alignment with what you want. So now we will hear you.
If I'm honest with myself, the truth is that in my life, I've always had enough. Enough. And when I talk about...
whether you use honest words or not doesn't matter, because you can't be dishonest with your vibration. Your vibration is what it is, and law of attraction is responding to what it is. So you don't have to say whether it's truthful or not, because what it is what it is, and law of attraction is bearing out what it is. So if what it is enough, then don't change anything. And if what is not enough, then change some things.
Well, here's the dilemma, is that in one sense, I've had enough. I've had enough. I've had enough money too.
But you see, that statement is not even accurate on any level. And let us tell you why. Anyone who says, I have enough, is, now stay with us a little bit. You're going to balk at this a little bit, because it's going to sound different than you want source energy to sound. But anyone who says, I have enough, is not in that moment in alignment with the expanding being that is them, who understands there will never be enough, because there will never be a cessation of expanding. When someone says, I have enough, what they're doing, they're focused upon limitation. They're focused on finite resources, and they are concluding, given the others that may be watching me at this time, that I have more than my fair share. And we want you to understand that even at its best, that is very limited thinking, because there is no ending to what the universe has the ability to yield to you. And you did not say, as you made the decision to come forth into physical experience, I've had enough. I've had enough exposure for life, because that would defy your being here. I've had enough contrasts that will lead me to more desires, because that would defy the fact that you are here giving birth to new desires. In other words, I've had enough defies everything, because source energy is becoming the new you constantly. So what we think you've had enough of is feeling the gap between the expanded you and the you you're letting yourself be. We think that's what you've had enough of.
Right. I hear you.
And so you say, I don't want to put myself in that position anymore. Have you ever been feeling pretty good, and then you saw something that you wanted that you couldn't afford? And then you said, oh man, I wish I didn't know I wanted that, because now I feel tension about it. I didn't care before I drove it, but now I rode in it Now, I didn't care before I saw her, before I smelled her, before I touched her, but now I want her. In other words, there are so many things that your life experience causes you to become, and you have no choice, if you are to be joyful, than to stay up to speed with it. So never again say, I have enough, but say instead, I have a way of keeping myself in perfect alignment on my way to eternal expansion. And that feeling of not enough, that feeling, discord is the feeling of the stream going this way and me going this way. That's what you're trying to describe with those words, you see. So now, talk to us. Just ramble about dollars and let us show you what we mean.
Ramble about dollars. Dollars are fun. Dollars allow for many different experiences, which I desire.
Pretty soon, you'll start talking about you in relationship to dollars.
Oh. Pretty soon. I have a lot of contradictory feelings about dollars. Yes. And
such as
I think one of my contradictory feelings is that while I know that they're useful, I do experience that there's a finite amount for me.
Now let's sort that out, because when you say I have contradictory feelings about dollars, you could mean a lot of different things. You could say my thoughts contradict my parents. You could say my thoughts contradict society. You could say my thoughts contradict my own thoughts. But what we want you to be aware of is when your thoughts contradict your inner being's thoughts. In other words, when your thought, because the only contradiction that matters is the contradiction between what you're thinking about a subject and who the larger part of you is thinking about a subject. So, for example, when you say, let's just break this down. Part of what you said is, so when I think about there really not being enough dollars to really go around, and I sort of have this feeling, I was brought up in it, that if I take more than my fair share, that somehow I might be depriving somebody else of their fair share. And that's why I want to say I have enough, because I get by and I live fine, and I don't want to squander it or waste it. Esther will never forget sitting on her porch one day. It was a very hot summer day in Texas. And she was sitting on the porch, and a breeze had come up, and the air was so nice, and so she had taken her beverage out to sit on the porch to drink it. And while she was sitting there, she could not help but notice the 3 or 4 men that were working on a new deck and walkway for her. And it was a totally unnecessary walkway, because it was going off in the bushes where they only occasionally ever even went. It was not the main way that they came into the house. That was all concrete and paved. It was a walkway that ultimately she only walked on maybe 20 times ever. But it was a walkway that got them up out of the mud so that they could take their walks when they were in Texas, even when it was raining and the ground might be muddy. And it was really a beautiful walkway. And so they wanted it, and they contracted for it, and the men came and built it. And so Esther is sitting there on this blistering hot day, sipping her wonderful beverage, watching the men who were out there in the heat of the day working hard. And she went inside and got a beverage for all of them and took it out to them and apologized for making them work on such a hot day. And this very dear man took his hat off as she approached and tucked it under his arm and said, "Oh, no, ma'am, thank you for the work." And suddenly, in that moment, something happened within Esther as she realized that her greedy desire was the heart of this man's money for this week. And suddenly, it didn't feel so greedy. It made her want to put walkways in more places she did not need them.
Right.